Hello, everyone, and you can see right in front of me a little something from the old school of 80s nostalgia. Now, as a child of the 80s, it's one thing that the 80s really did excel in were two things: cartoons and video games. Now, of course, what I have on screen before you is from io9.com, and it's about 12 cartoons from the 1980s no one will ever have nostalgia for. Now, before I get into it, let me just say that's a lie. That title right there is a lie because A, we were all kids once. Most of us remember some of the shows that is on this list, and other shows that have not made the list. So, actually, I am going to read the top 12 cartoons that quote unquote no one will ever have nostalgia for, and I'll add some of my own from what I can remember. So, the 80s were the heyday of children's animation, when weekday afternoons and Saturday mornings were packed full of cartoons. Some were great, some were just okay, and some were unbearably wretched. Here are a dozen 80s cartoons that don't deserve to be remembered at all, let alone fondly. We start with number 1, Kissy Fur. Okay. When a circus train derails, two performing bears escape into the swamp of Piddlecab County. Somehow, the father bear Gus has the idea to start a paddle cab company, and with his son Kissy creates a business transporting other animals across the river. That is, with the exception of alligators, because alligators are evil predators, while bears are gentle and noble and protectors of the swamps. Two thoughts. How many other animals and circus folk died in the train wreck at the beginning of the opening? And two, Kissy sounds a lot like Lucifer, just saying. Now, personally, I remember Kissy. I remember when I was a kid. This came on NBC when we actually had cartoons. And I remember the lineup was the following. You had Kissy, you had the Smurfs, the Snorks, and there was something else. But I remember I think it was Yo Yogi, or Captain, and I think it was Yo Yogi. But most times, whenever I watched Channel 4, here is Channel 4 NBC. But whenever I watch cartoons, now I know I'm not the only one who did this, but I woke up around 6 a.m. in the morning, sat right in front of the TV. I didn't have breakfast. I just sat right in front of the TV on the floor, turned on Channel 4. Because, mind you, back in the day, we only had like three, 4 stations that actually showed cartoons. There was CBS, NBC, and ABC. KTLA or the CW as what they're called now. Let alone Fox really didn't show any cartoons. That was like later, like down in the 90s. But I remember Kissy so very well. It wasn't a bad show, considering that, it was only, from 1986 to 90s. I also remember the Popples and the Wuzzles. They were on Channel 2, I believe. There were so many other cartoons that I remember, but we'll go into it as we go along, as I can remember it as well. Some of you out there have, some of you out there perhaps have cartoons that you remember watching as a kid. But let's go into number 2, shall we? Potato Head Kids. I imagine many kids would find it hard to believe, but prior to the Toy Story movies, Mr. Potato Head was not the 15th or so best loved character from a major Pixar franchise. Actually, he had no character or cultural cash at all, other than being one of those toys every kid has but no one ever plays with, which is why Hasbro's decision to make a cartoon about Mr. Potato Head is so baffling. Albeit not as baffling as why they decided to have a show focus on his non-existent children instead of himself. As you could tell from the opening title, the Potato Head Kids like having fun, which includes going to potato church and driving in cars with an unsecured potato baby. This only lasted 1 year. I remember Potato Head Kids. There was another show I also remember. You might fault me for this, you might not. But I also remember the Cabbage Patch Kids. I remember the classic Cabbage Patch Kids TV show long before they actually made that movie, and long before there was that god awful Garbage Pails Kids movie. That thing was a train wreck and a half. My God. But yeah, I remember this show. I never watched most of the show. And as I'm telling you this right now, I'm pretty sure after this video, I'm going to end up watching mainly old cartoons from my youth. When I was growing up, anyway. There's so many other cartoons that most people have not heard of, like Rambo and the Freedom Fighters. Let's see, another one. Oh, Dungeons and Dragons. Galtar and the Golden Lands. The later 80 version of Johnny Quest, the New Adventures of Johnny Quest, as they call it. And how many incarnations of Scooby-Doo came out back then? Moving on. This one, because probably this is where we get those weirdo cartoons that came from Bobot and because I'm looking at this, it reminds me of all those Canadian cartoons that ever came over, like Totally Spies and all that. Beverly Hills Teens, proving that there's always a market for entertainment based on watching young, insanely rich people be awful. Beverly Hills Teens was about, wait for it, teens in Beverly Hills without any problems except the ones they generate for themselves. According to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia, Beverly Hills Teens was touted by producers as a response to the more violent series aimed at children and would provide wholesome role models for kids. Yeah, sure, because Beverly Hills, nothing says role models like being snobs. Those role models, of course, exemplifying the noble values of being stupid rich and mostly white. Although I'm pretty sure that one computer nerd kid with the glasses built himself a sex spot, right? And his name is Bernard, and he went to Maniac Mansion with his friends. And they were never seen from again. Moving on. And mind you, this article was sent to me by Sheena because we both remember the glory days of the 80s. I'm not the only, and I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones who remember the glory of the 80s. Number 4 on the list, Rude Dog and the Dweebs. You know when you make a cartoon based on a mascot of a semi-popular surfing and skateboarding centric clothing line? Oh, hi TNC Surfing. How's it going? Sorry. You're going to get something special, and of course I say special. I mean, an animated atrocity. I defy you to watch the above cartoon intro and not become filled with rage. Trust me, I will show the link in the description box below. I defy you to watch the above cartoon intro and not become filled with rage. Rude Dog is a dog who glorifies rudeness, as if being rude is cool and not something an asshole does. He hangs out with the Dweebs, a pack of dogs who help him run his presumably rude delivery business. If you want to be really sad, track down one of the episodes and listen to the Dweebs, whose voices include Peter Cullen, Frank Welker, best known as Optimus Prime and Megatron from the Transformers. Warning, once you hear them as dweebs, you can never unhear them. And for some apparent reason, I remember it, but yet I don't remember it. We'll leave it at that. Number 5. Oh, this one. I'm surprised they really haven't put this on this Discovery Family. It used to be called Hub. That's funny. There was a Discovery Channel, then it was changed to the Hub, then it was changed back to Discovery Channel. How fucked up is that? Another cartoon paired with the original My Little Pony cartoon series. I remember My Little Pony. I prefer that one over Friendship is Magic. At least it went somewhere. I'm sorry, but being too happy, there's something wrong there. I mean, nothing wrong with being too happy, but in a world in which, mainly, it's something like Care Bears. I don't know, there's something wrong with that. It's like you're not really being real, and somehow I figure like they have a cult happening or some shit like that, and they're all saying, "We care, Care Bears there, Care Bears there, Care Bears there." Like, oh god, they're doing some real crazy retardation shit, and some mental retardation shit happening, some weird rudimentary clandestine shit, you know what I mean? Another cartoon paired with the original My Little Pony cartoon series, based on a none too popular Hasbro doll line. The Moondreamers spent all their time sneaking into kids' bedrooms and helping them have nice dreams, when the evil Queen Scowleen tried to make the kids have nightmares. So yeah, pretty high stakes stuff. Literally the only notable thing about the show is in the theme song, where it sounds like the pink-haired little girl at the 10 seconds is singing, "Making your sweet-ass dreams come true." Oh, God. Why does that make me think about the later shows that came out? And I'm sorry, but I prefer Wildfire over something like this. I'm sorry. At least it told a story. Anything on CBS or NBC, it was okay. But when you went to KCOP, oh man, you had some weird shit happening. I mean, past Romper Room, and yes, I remember Romper Room, and something else. I can't remember the show, but I remember Kid Quiz was on. I remember Kid Quiz. If nobody remembers that, it was a show just like Double Dare, except it was more educated. It was more edutainment instead of entertainment. We won't be moving to the 12 and strange disturbing facts about the original My Little Pony. Let's move to number 6. Because I can actually remember the theme song. This is where they were pushing out all the somewhat computer graphic, the early computer graphics before it went on high definition and whatnot. Number 6 is Denver, the Last Dinosaur. Denver, the last dinosaur. He's my friend and a whole lot more. Oh God, I can't remember that song. Anyway, Jesus, it's a dinosaur wearing sunglasses who skateboards and plays an electric guitar. It's the Simpsons Poochie before Poochie ever existed. It's a cartoon about coolness and friendship created by a marketing committee of old white men who never experienced either of them before. Actually, Denver. And man, what a cool name for a dinosaur. The capital of Colorado was the bomb, yo. It's crisp fresh, yo. Dig it. Can use parts of a shell to travel in time because no one working on that level of the show cared the tiniest shit about it. And that's cool. And I remember it was 1988 and this show came out and God, I remember Widget, the World Watcher, and then there was Mr. Bogus. Let me move on. And then if you had Denver the Last Dinosaur, then you'll remember Dink the Little Dinosaur. For those who felt Denver's high-octane lifestyle was too much for them, Dink was ready to accept you. Dink wasn't part of today's fast-paced world, but instead lived in a bubonic Jurassic area where all the dinosaurs hung out 2 feet apart from each other in complete peace and friendship, except for when they went on water slides together and abused elderly turtles. Wow, what does that remind me of? Oh yeah, The Land Before Time. It only lasted for a year, 1989 to 90. But I do remember Dink the Little Dinosaur though. It used to be on Cartoon Network, Cartoon Network or Boomerang. I think it was Cartoon Network, and then it was Boomerang. Hadn't seen it since. Damn shame. It's real fun though. Oh shit! Now we're getting somewhere. Cause when you think of Ruby Spears, you think of the most insane animation you could ever find. Because I can remember a few things about Ruby Spears. Ruby Spears are the same people who did Thundar the Barbarian, Goldie Golden Action Jack, and Plastic Man. Those 3 I remember so well. They also did the Centurions, which was an awesome show. I remember the Centurions. Power Extreme! Anyway. And Don Pardo as the narrator. Let's talk about Rubik's and the Amazing Cube. Rubik's the Amazing Cube. Was it hubris, stupidity, or just plain apathy that led animation studio Ruby Spears to try to make a show out of the personality-less plastic block known as the Rubik's Cube? We may never know. We do know, thanks to archival footage, that the cartoon was terrible, even beyond the fact that it was about a toy puzzle that gained magic powers and grew a creepy blue baby head when solved. I guarantee the Rubik's cartoon made people throw their cubes in traps that inspired to buy one. And it only lasted 1983 to 84. You know what that reminds me of? Oh yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, solve the Millennium Item, what happens? Godly powers beyond recognition. You are the chosen one. You are the Pharaoh. You have the powers of darkness. You can kill people at a whim. Yet, we're going to give you playing cards to save the world. Goddamn animation. Goddamn anime. Anime. Because when playing cards is enough, you play for keeps. Moving on to number 9. Now, most people, when you think about Ghostbusters, you only think about the Columbia Pictures movie and the show that actually was spawned after the movie, namely, quote unquote, The Real Ghostbusters. Well, my friends, if you don't remember Filmation, yes, the same people who made He-Man and She-Ra. Filmation, the same people who made Brave Star and other quotable quotes. Filmation, yes, those people who did the Archies and the Groovy Ghoulies and Lassie's Rescue Rangers. Have you ever wondered why the cartoon based on the Ghostbusters movie was called The Real Ghostbusters instead of just Ghostbusters? You can blame this cartoon. When the movie became a hit, Filmation grabbed the rights to this 1970s live-action Ghostbuster TV show. Yes, there was a show prior to this, and put an extremely loose cartoon adaptation of it on the air, which bore the technically legal names of Ghostbusters. This was done before the movie people could get their animated spin-off ducks in a row, obviously. Filmation was more willing to trick kids into thinking they were about to watch Venkman, Spengler, Stantz, and Zeddemore bust ghosts, only to find out the show was actually 2 unknown dipshits in an ape wearing a fedora running around like idiots. And it made us bitter, and to the extent that we all think about it, it makes us bitter now. And you know why I remember this? Let's go Ghostbusters! I'm sorry. Because I remember the theme song. Let's go Ghostbusters! Let's go! I'm going to move on now. Oh, come on, y'all. Number 10. How can you not remember the Paw Paw Bears? Or the Paw Paws? Oh, I can remember the theme song so well. Knee deep in the forest, along from everywhere. They call them the Paw Paw Bears. Paw Paw Bears. Yeah, I can't remember the whole theme song, but I remember Paw Paw Bears. When you get in trouble, and this goes double, you call them the Paw Paw Bears. Yeah, I remember that song. I assume the entire world has forgotten about Paw Paws. I don't. Because otherwise, I think we would have still be talking about how weird and it is someone made a cartoon about a group of bear cubs embodying Native American stereotypes. Inspired the tremendous amounts of cash the Smurfs was generating, Hanna-Barbera somehow decided what kids really wanted was a bunch of bears with names like Brave Paw and Laughing Paw who lived in teepees and pueblos somehow, and had a magic totem pole that came to life whenever the village was under attack by the evil but incompetent magician Dark Paw. Obviously, Hanna-Barbera was wrong and kind of racist. Well, actually, if you think about it, Paw Paw Bears was pretty different considering they only had a whole year season run. It only lasted from 1985 to 86. I mean, it might not be as memorable as the Smurfs and the Snorks, but it was Hanna-Barbera, and if they had their way, if they really pushed it, because remember Hanna-Barbera, they know one thing that works just as well: crossovers. So think about it. There would have been a Smurfs Paw-Paws crossover. I can imagine Dark Paw would have teamed up with Gargamel and Chlorhydrus. And I'm sorry, but as I remember Smurfs, I only remember one thing. The king was just as bad as Richard Rich on Richie Rich. I mean, he had basically bad guys just coming to his kingdom and he said, "Oh look, you know what? Let me look at what you got here. Oh, okay, okay, you can be my advisor." Oh fuck, really? It's just as bad as Richie. It's just as bad as Richie Rich. Think about it. Richard Rich did the same thing the King in the Smurfs did. He actually hired the wrong type of people to actually steal from him for no apparent reason. And who did they run into? Richie Rich and Professor Keen Bean and Irona. Yeah, they ran into those three and Dollar. Yes, because sure, why not? You gonna fuck up some shit on the richest on the richest estate, and then you got the son of the most fabulously wealthy. I almost messed that up. Fabulously wealthy, yet stupid as all hell when dealing with people. Richard Rich and wife Regina Rich, and the son is smart enough to basically say, "Okay, Professor, hook me up with something. Irona, please. Go fuck their shit proper. Thank you." He didn't have to do it, but he did anyway. Because, he's Richie Rich, damn it. Oh, fuck you, Reggie Van Doe. That's all I'm going to say. Fuck you up the ass. He was always making shit bad for Richie, and yet it always backfired on his ass. So goddamn stupid. Oh, God. Now, this is a cartoon. This is a cartoon that I remember watching on KTLA Channel 5. Popeye and Son. That's right. Popeye and Son. Which basically, you had the question, how the fuck did that happen? In the heyday of 80s, animation studios would make a cartoon about anything. Mr. T! Which almost reminds me of, oh wait, Mike Tyson Mysteries. Knock off. They made cartoons based on live action shows like Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley, for goodness sakes. Oh, and let's not forget Fonz and the Happy Days gang. And they made shows about established characters suddenly with children, or sometimes as children, such as Muppet Babies and Flintstone Kids. And let's not forget a pup named Scooby-Doo and Yo Yogi. Now, all of those surely have at least something, at least have someone who thinks of them fondly. I mean, there's got to be a die-hard Laverne and Shirley fan who appreciates the animated exception of the Laverne and Shirley verse, but no one loves Popeye and Son. Why? Because it took away Popeye's most and arguably only defining characteristic: his propensity for incredible violence. Neither Popeye nor Bluto nor their shitty kids ever punched each other in the show. And seriously, if Popeye can't hit anybody, what's the goddamn point of making a Popeye cartoon at all? I agree. Because all you have to do is you just have to pull out Popeye, and all you would get is, oh fuck, he has a can of spinach. Oh shit, your day is gonna get wrecked. Whatever you did to him, he's gonna fuck your ass up in spades. Trust me. You don't fuck with Popeye. You don't fuck with his people, cause he will cutthroat your shit. Thank you. Now this one, the last one that I can remember. Foofer! You don't remember Foofer? Oh God. Then I'm not surprised if you don't remember Foofer. That came on NBC. I remember that clear as day. This is a show about a blue dog who has inherited a house and a real estate agent who would like to sell the house but has to get rid of the dog and his canine friends. It's a cartoon about dog eviction, and someone had the gall to claim this was cool. For fuck's sake, he only rode the skateboard because he accidentally stepped on it. And this only lasted 2 years. 1986 to 88. Oh my lord. I'm not going to read these. But I can tell you right now, from all these titles that I remember, I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with you a few titles that I remember in the 80s. Okay, a few titles that probably most will remember, and it will probably be like a future retro reviews episode on my channel. Now, this I'm pretty sure most remember. Thundercats, Silverhawks, Mask, Jace and the Wheel Warriors, Inspector Gadget, and all the other ones I just already mentioned. The Get Along Gang. Let me. I'm just going to pick anything that I can remember. Yes, the 80s. The 80s. The Gary Coleman Show. Yeah, even though it was like 70s, we count as 80s because it went into the 80s. Oh boy. Like I said, Goldtar and the Golden Lands. Aside from the Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters, or quote, the Real Ghostbusters, there was, of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's see. The New Adventures of Gigantor. I can remember because I watched TV for like 5 hours until I just got up, put on my clothes, and went outside and played. Oh man. Rainbow Bright, My Little Pony, G.I. Joe, The Transformers, or Transformers Generation 1, The Adventures of Batman and Robin, the Filmation one. Yes, that was in the 80s too. Yes, I'm looking at Lionel from the 80s version of Lionel. Oh man, the 80s was a fun year because not only did we have good cartoons back in the day, but we had video games. Long before there was an age of high definition graphics and achievements, or the fact that we had internet because long before YouTube was even a thing, before we actually ever competed to be all gamers for some apparent reason. Before there was even a thought of flash games or anything like that, there was the Nintendo Entertainment System. There was also the Sega Master System. There was also the Texas Instruments, the first ever home computer you can actually have, aside from having a Commodore 64 or an Amiga or anything else I could possibly remind myself of during the 80s or the 80s, quote unquote, going up to the 90s. We had good game shows back in the day. We actually had Finders Keepers, Double Dare, Make the Grade, Tic Tac Doe, Card Sharks, the Bob Barker version of The Price is Right, Classic Concentration, uh, the daytime version of Wheel of Fortune, Sale of the Century, the 80s version of Match Game, Hollywood Squares. Oh, there were so many other games that I can remember. And of course, we had the NES and the SMS, the Sega Master System, like I said. We had video games. We had those days in which we didn't have Skype, but we actually had friends we can actually talk to in front of us. And we actually called them over. And, they come on over after getting permission from their parents. And they come over. And you have friends, actually, when you actually have like a good buddy that will play Nintendo or yeah, Nintendo, because Nintendo was a big thing back then. And you guys would play video games. Video games until basically they were called back home. You hated for them to leave, but it happened. Apparently, I miss those days. Those days in which everything was simple. It wasn't about, overdrawn internet jokes that basically been run to the fucking ground for God knows how long. I almost forgot another cartoon that I forgot a few cartoons that I remember back in the day in which I just had cable before we had satellite. There were two I remember. I'm pretty sure nobody actually remembers. One is called The Raccoons. Another one is David the Gnome. Noozles, Little Bits, Grimm's Fairy Tales. And that was back in the day in which you actually had good stuff on TV. Not none of this retarded shit on TV. And I'm sorry if I'm using the word retarded, but the content will make you stupid. Especially on Cartoon Network now. You got shows like Teen Titans Go. I'm sorry, but that show's retarded. You got overblown used jokes. They're not that funny. Feels more forced than anything. I could say Clarence, but most people kind of like Clarence. I don't know how many people like Clarence. I mean, Cartoon Network is one of those channels that used to be good, but isn't as good as they were back then. Because Cartoon Network actually held good cartoons. The cartoons that they have now are mitsa. Because it's only half good and half meh. And because it's not just Cartoon Network. It's just it's happening with everything else. Nickelodeon, the Disney Channel, and what used to be the Family Channel. Now the Family Channel also had cartoons, but they were taken off. I also remember another cartoon by the name of Heroes on Hot Wheels and The Legend of Prince Valiant. Cause see, I remember most of what I watched on TV. Because I had nothing but free time when I was a kid. I was a good kid and everything else. But growing up, you tend to remember the good times you actually had when you actually went through, now you're thinking of now. Now seems so terrible as compared to back then. I mean, even back then, anime was still coming out, and you had shows like Voltron and Robotech before it was even called Macross. Before we even knew Macross existed, there was Robotech. Same thing for Southern Cross. We didn't know Southern Cross existed because there was Macross. Mospeada, same thing. And it was only then and later, until I watched like the actual openings, I said, "Oh shit, they meshed this shit together. Oh my god, I can't believe it." But yeah, the '80s, it definitely had the most obscure cartoons ever known because most of them were obscure. And even as I'm mentioning this now, you can find it online and watch every one of those old cartoons. And I'm counting even the Disney cartoons like the Adventures of the Gummy Bears and I think the Gummy Bears was almost like the Smurfs. And again, if there was a crossover, that would have been awesome. But like I said, there was the Adventures of the Gummy Bears, Darkwing Duck, Disney Afternoon sort of thing, Marsupilami, Snookums and Meat, and all that. I think that was the real downfall right there, Snookums and Meat. But I remember the Disney Afternoon though. Aside from all that, like I said, when you're older, you start to remember things that were memorable to you. So as a '80s child, I had to remind myself of why I like doing what I like doing. Whether I'm playing an old game or whether I'm playing a new game, I'm doing it because I'm a gamer. I'm playing a game. I'm talking through it. You're listening because, you find me interesting. It's the same thing. You watch a cartoon. You really feel like you should try to remember those days in which most people kind of remember how things were back in the day. They were simple, they were easy. You didn't have a care in the world because you were just a kid. And I'm actually glad I went through this because honestly, it had to be said. I mean, you can't just say that nobody actually remembers 12 of the most obscure cartoons ever known. And nobody actually ever liked them. you can't say nobody actually ever liked them because they had to see it first. They had to see it for themselves. So therefore, that's a double negative. Saying, "Oh yeah, we don't. Well, you don't remember this because they were terrible in your opinion. Excuse me. In your opinion, they were terrible, but in my opinion, they were just as good as the popular ones." Which is probably the reason why I do obscure games. And if I don't do obscure games, I do something modern. You know, if I don't do anything from the past, I do something from the present. So therefore, that's my thing, and that's what I do. But anyway, if you do have any comments or anything you want to share in the comments below, please feel free to. I want to hear what you think about cartoons now as compared to cartoons back then, or if you have some sort of memories about past cartoons that you seem to remember, please share that too. It's all good because, hey, most of us came from the same stock, and our stock was awesome. So anyway, I've been the Tenkaichi of gaming and otaku, PI7, and I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I have made this. I will see you next time for more interesting videos. Until then, take care, God bless, and of course, Tenkai Muso.